My panel cart is flexible, mobile, and can deliver over 1,000 watts of pure solar power. And on a sunny day, it has no problem meeting my daily energy needs, along with recharging the batteries on my power cart, making this a really robust solar generator. Let's talk about the practicality of going 100% solar where I live here in Michigan. I showed you that when the city power was out for over 24 hours, I was able to run everything in my house except my 240 volt appliances all day long. I had enough power to run my whole house because there were virtually no clouds in the sky all day, and the power that wasn't being used was being stored in my batteries for use later when the panels weren't producing enough power or any power at all. The Victron Smart Solar app not only allows me to monitor the power that the panels are producing in real time, it also provides a historical view of what the charge controller processed for the last 30 days. The time is 4:46, and so far today the panels have produced 4.47 kilowatts of power, and the maximum power that the panels sent to the charge controller so far today is 1,447 watts. The Vmax should never exceed your charge controller's capability. By clicking on the total volume bar, the app shows you how much power was distributed to the batteries. As you can see here, 7 hours and 43 minutes have been supplied as bulk, 1 hour and 16 minutes as absorption, and 56 minutes as float, which tells me the panels are producing more power than the system requires and the batteries are topped off. Let's look at yesterday. The panels produced 6,240 watt-hours of power over 13 hours and 27 minutes, which was all bulk. My smart shunt showed me that the batteries were charged at 95% capacity at the end of the day, which is more than enough power for everything in my garage to run all night. 2 days ago, the panels only produced 720 watt-hours, and that was for the whole day, and the highest power level was 183 watts. We had an extreme cloudy, overcast, dreary, dismal day, which produced over an inch of snow. Now the height of the bar has nothing to do with time, only the volume of power generated. I am now going to scroll to the right, which will show you the last 30 days of data. Once the day has ended and the controller is no longer detecting power from the panels, it generates a new day and drops the last day. I have been recording this data since October 11, 2019, and it is this data that we'll be looking at to help determine whether or not it is practical to try to go 100% solar in Michigan. Today is April 22nd, and it's 8:15. My solar panels are no longer producing energy, so let's look at what the controller processed for the day, and I will show you how I record and use this data. This is the Excel spreadsheet that I use and keep track of the data. Up in the top left hand corner, all this is a cumulative total of how much the panels have produced over the last 190, well actually it's more than 193 days. I've actually been recording data 193 days, but we'll take a look at this. So it's 360,390 watts of power. I track it by day and how much was produced each day. So as you can see, anything less than 500 gets a 1 in this column. Anything over 500 but less than 1,000, I put a 1 there, all the way up to 11,000. So to date, I haven't had anything in the 10,000 to 11,000 range, but I have from 9,000 to 10,000. I have this one here, 9,230, and this one for 9,690. So we'll use all that data here in a few minutes. Then I keep track based upon what my local power company charges me, 17 cents per kilowatt. So if I'm generating my own, I give myself credit for it. So to date, all I've been tracking is $82.11. So this is a portable solar generator. It's not for daily use, it's for emergency use, but I have used it several times for to run when I had a lot of solar coming in. I would run it my whole house, so I've actually run 82.45 hours on my solar cart. So let's start right here, and I'll show you how I put in the data and where I get the data from. So I use my Smart Solar app, and as you can see, it's cumulative total on this one is 215,000 kilowatts, and I'll explain why there's a difference between that and the 360 in a few minutes. So I take the 4690 and log that in. Then I come over, so it's less than 5 but greater than 4, so I put a 1 there, and watch that it changed to 26, the percentage changed, and now 194 days. And the Pmax for the day is 1447. And let's change, and we'll look at time, the duration. So bulk is 9 hours and 37 minutes. Then we have 1 hour and 16 minutes in absorption, and then we have 2 hours and 30 minutes. So I don't like to see absorption and float when I'm using it, because that means that I generated more than I was actually using. So it just the batteries were topped off, and it was just trying to maintain. So we have 13 hours and 23 minutes. The software doesn't like doing calculations with time, so I convert that. So 23 minutes, I use this little handy chart that I made. 23 minutes is about 38.38, so it's 13.38. So I was going to show you that the difference between the 360 and the 390 in the 215K, and that's as a result of right here on March 5th. I changed out my charge controller. I had a 150 volt. I changed it to a 250, and the reason is because I had a high voltage notification on this day and on this day. I actually, the panels are rated at 47.7, and it shouldn't have exceeded, but what I didn't take into consideration is the cold weather coefficient. And so the colder the weather, the higher the voltage will be, and it actually exceeded, and I didn't want to take a chance of burning out my charge controller. So the new charge controller is only reading 215 kilowatts, but this is actually what the whole system has yielded from the beginning. So, as I pointed out, this 730 watt hours for the entire day. If you come over here, the panels, the best they saw was 183 watts. And it was pretty much an overcast day all day. And so, as you can see, just the next day, the sun was out, and it generated, it saw at one point 1460 and then 1447. So I want to take a look at all this data. There's a lot of data here. And so you can see that some days 10 watts, 210 watts for an entire day, 470. As you can see, we have 62 days out of the 194 that's actually under 500 watts. So I'm going to scroll back up. I'm going to grab all of this data. I'm going to take all of the data from watts generated, and I'm going to grab the date so you can see it. Okay, so now I'm going to take and I'm going to insert it and create a scatter chart. We'll get rid of that just so it opens it up better. I'll go ahead and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into a PowerPoint just so you can see it better. And we'll stretch that out. Okay. And this will give us all of the actual power. Now let's go back to the Excel sheet, and I want to do the same thing relative to time. So we'll capture the time, and this is how long each of the panels had enough energy coming into them that they could actually produce power. Scatter chart, we'll get rid of the series, get rid of that, let's copy it. Okay, so it's relatively lined up there. We'll bring this back over a little bit for June 3rd to June 3rd. So, as you can see, total watts per day and total hours per day. In October, November time frame, we had some good days. I mean, all the way up to almost, well, let's click on this one by itself. On November 18th, 5,610 watts. The highest one so far is over that. April 2nd was 9,690 watts. That's the highest performance day out of the panels. So let's look at this area right here. As you can see, the time is relatively consistent, and the duration of sunlight is increasing as we get closer to summer. We had some real poor days, and we had some fairly good days in December and January. Let's just pick a date out here. On December 27th, we had 8 hours and 8.39 hours. And this one is 8.41. And then, let's see, this is what, December 29th, 1290 watts generated. Okay, that's the entire, so had nothing been running, and if it went strictly into batteries, you could run a hair blower that would require 1290 watts. You could run that hair blower for 1 hour, and then you would be done. So you get down to these days, December 12th, 10 watts, 60 watts, 30 watts, 20 watts. So what this is telling me is that in Michigan, trying to run off of 100% pure solar, it would take a solar farm probably 3 or 4 times the acreage that I have here, because if my panels can produce 1,000 watts, and on January 5th, the entire day, it only produced 20 watts, you could run a 20 watt light bulb for 1 hour. To try to run an entire house that's totally electric, and a electric car, trying to keep it charged, you can't do it in Michigan. There is just not enough sunlight without taking acres and acres and acres and acres of land to be able to generate enough solar energy. My house runs, the furnace is on gas, I have a gas stove, I have a gas hot water heater, I have a gas fireplace. So if I were to try to change all those over to electric, I would not be able to generate enough power. Not only that, when you've got days like this, weeks at a time, that's generating virtually nothing, then you would have to have a a power bank that on a day like this, that could store up enough power in order to run on days like this. So my conclusion is trying to run Michigan residents on purely 100% solar is not practical, period.